Hello everybody and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And today we are starting off what is going to be a long journey, but a fun one here of Global War 39, Historical Board Gaming's magnum opus game before 36 was released. But this was the game that really got me into Historical Board Gaming's line of offerings. And we're just doing a little bit of some tweaking here and there. The real changes have been the units. We've added quite a number of units. Gameplay remains fairly similar. A couple of notable things would be that destroyers can now see 2 submarines, so that's important. And also we've added armored trains that you can purchase that'll zip your units around a little bit faster, which can mean a lot to these beleaguered Soviet peoples. Now, I know that Triple Crown has been going through a number of these play tests, and Captain G, I believe, is doing one. Maybe he's even on the second one. I don't know. You can let me know in the comments below, guys. And there might be another one being done. I'm not aware of it. I just sent a message off to Triple Crown to say, hey, is somebody else doing one? Let me know. And obviously, I haven't heard back because that was 30 seconds before I began this video. So we are going to head right into it here. So the Japanese with their banzai charges and their 3 sneak attacks, which they need to use by turn 5. We have Operation Barbarossa, which the Germans will hopefully make good use of. And the D-Day, which is a wonderful operation which allows the Allies to land in sufficient force when they do come into Europe instead of the little piecemeal attacks. But there you have it, folks. The board is set up, ready to go, and we'll give you the dead pile after what happens here. France is in some trouble. Could be fun to watch. All right, so filming with a tripod here so I can show you the dead pool. And we got to take care of some housekeeping. Well, first of all, a little rundown of the German first and second impulse went very well. They got all the Axis miners. They took Paris, took Warsaw, wiped out the entire British home fleet, the Canadian fleet, and the Norwegian and Danish fleets all got scuttled. So no freebies, or no, Germans got 1 destroyer out of there. I forget who gave it to them. The French fleet in the Med, 1 ship went Vichy, and 1 destroyer went German, so that went to join the Italians, and the Vichy is there. We're not sure where to go right now because we now have to roll for the Vichy and Free French territories. So we've got our Free French and Vichy roundels here, and if the dice kind of do the 50-50 thing, we should be good. So we're going to start with Bordeaux, and a 1 to a 6 means it goes Vichy. And that means it goes Free French. So Bordeaux is Free France, which is going to be British money this round for 1 turn. And now Marseille, it went Vichy. But because these guys here can go, they're going to do that. And Marseille is just essentially has been evacuated. In the old rules, the Germans could set aside $5 and put in an armor and a couple of guys. But in the new rules, that is no longer an option. Now, we're going to take care of, let's go this way, Rio de Oro. That is Vichy. Western Algeria, Free French. So that'll save these guys here if they go Vichy. Algeria, and that's going to go Vichy. Now we'll go to Morocco. Oh, Vichy. And because that's Vichy, these guys here need to move. But I think we wait until the end of the round, actually. Says you can move, yeah, because it's got a spot to move right now. So, do they have to vacate right now? No, we do all of them. All right, next one over. Oh, that's definitely Vichy. Rolled a 1. But those guys are all able to escape, luckily for the French. And then Tunisia is also that. Okay, so all those French Foreign Legion guys in Tunisia. Both of them are going to actually become Vichy units. And West Africa, Free French. French West Africa, Free French. I like to roll these three in here as one big thing. So they're going to remain Free French. I'm running out of Free French roundels. And Syria. Whoop. All right, Syria rolled a 3. That is Vichy. So that guy's going to turn Vichy. And then French Indochina and Saigon. These ones here, pretty important, because if they go Vichy, they actually just go Japanese. So we'll start with French Indochina. That's a 6. So that's going to be Vichy, which will turn Japanese. And then Saigon is also a 6. Wow. So that's all Japanese. Everything's coming up Axis in those spots. So essentially what's going to happen then is the two guys down there are going to become Japanese units. The Syrian guy is going to become a French Vichy unit. And then these guys over here all have to escape. They're just going to go and take all this territory back. But Germany will collect the money for these 3 territories right now. And then the Free French will go out and Britain will have them likely for the balance of the game. It's not a place that Italy and Germany really want to get into a squabble over. It's just the juice ain't worth the squeeze, as they say. Oh, I almost forgot. We got a couple more. Corsica right here. Very important. Vichy. I'm out of Vichy. We will get a Vichy. Just tells you Vichy's been doing pretty well. Well, we'll put it here because it's going to be taken off the board in a second. And then we've got the islands over here. That's a 4 for Fiji, and New Hebrides is a 7. So one of each. One of each. Oh, and Madagascar. All right. There you go. I need some more Vichy. Vichy and a Free French. All right. So Madagascar went Vichy, which can be tricky because now the Japanese planes can have a place to land. And that can cause 10 kinds of grief for British naval units trying to get the heck out of the Indian Ocean. All right, so I'm sure that was very exciting for all of you. But that is essentially the first German turn. So they have taken everything that they wanted to, and although they lost a bunch of subs, they were down to 4, but I built a couple as well on the first round, knowing I'd lose a bunch, but I can't replace all of them. So I built 4 and built a bunch of fast movers and 1 SS guy. So a bunch of medium tanks, actually. All right, lots of money for the Germans coming up for round 2. But now it's Japan's turn. So Japan gets to unleash the horde. And we'll see how it goes for them. If it goes as well as it does for Germany, it's going to be a long uphill climb for the Allies. All right, just a little wrap up of Japan's turn. Then I got to head off and watch another war that's going on called the Toronto-Tampa Bay Stanley Cup Playoffs. First round, Game 5. My Leafs could finish them off tonight, but as I say that, those guys, I tell you. Anyway. Japanese had a pretty good opening round here. Didn't lose much. Lost a veteran troop. Maybe that's all they lost. I think that might be all they lost. And they gained, of course, quite a bit of territory. And I did use the destroyers to shuttle over 3 infantry. If you pair 2 destroyers together, you can bring over 1 infantry in non-combat. So in non-combat, I used those 6 destroyers to help me shuttle some guys over. And this is the first game ever that I have played that I did not build a factory on the mainland. I built a couple of transports and 4 units. 2 infantry, 2 S on the left. I saved $4. And Japan collected 51. So I'm going to have $55 to spend next round, which means by round 4 I should be in a very good position to make a monstrous attack on whomever I choose. Here are 2 Japanese task forces. So of course we got the loaded carriers with some cruisers and a couple of battle wagons, some escort carriers, a couple more cruisers, and the Siamese destroyer. So very good opening 1-2 punch for the Germans and the Japanese. Looking pretty strong, but hey, the Allies in this game now have some options of punching back that they did not have in the previous version. So this is the Global War 39 Ultra, and even though things look bleak for the first 4 or 5 rounds for the Allies, the time is not on their side. They need to, the Axis I'm speaking of, need to finish things off quickly, because as the Americans get in the war, and it's very tough to take out a lot of the British money, they will grow in power, especially with the money islands. These money islands down here constitute quite a bit of money that typically goes to FEC. Now, FEC, already making 23, will likely scoop up most of these. They'll scoop up a couple in the first couple rounds. This is worth 4, 4, 3, 2, 2, and 1. Anzac tends to take care of a couple of them, but the FEC typically gets close to 40 in their games, because they can also go over here and chow down on the 3 free bucks here in Iran, and then go take out Iraq, worth 2. So we certainly have some interesting times ahead, and I don't think Japan is going to allow FEC to get too big. I think that's really the key to victory for the Axis, is if you can stifle FEC, you can rule the Pacific. But if FEC starts building up stacks of tanks and infantry, that becomes a real problem. Now, if it's just infantry, it's not a big deal. But if it's tanks and aircraft and ships, now all of a sudden Japan's got problems, because if America also decides to throw in the Pacific theater, that can really get daunting. And if they haven't eliminated China by then, well, it's just problem after problem after problem. But we're going to go watch the Leafs. Hopefully they win. And stay tuned. Well, for you, it's just going to be a moment, because the Soviets get to go next, and then onward we go with the Allied turn. Round 1 is in the books, and here we have the great British fleet right in the middle of the dark continent. Everybody's contracting malaria. Well, that's not where they are, actually. They're over here in the Red Sea. So they came over here and joined up with the FEC fleet, which came over. The good part is that it's a fairly healthy fleet right now. The bad part is they had to come to this side in the Suez Canal, and the Italians were able to close it. I thought, what the heck, let's give it a whirl. And I sent 1 man, 1 artillery, and in the first turn they got a hit. I also sent the bomber, but they didn't even need it. And the British did not get a hit back, the lone defending infantry. So what I'm trying this turn is to keep Italy relevant in the water. Now, if you've been watching the other playtests that are going on, there's Triple Crown, and Captain G and CB's Bill are all doing some playtesting of 39. And I've decided to throw my hat in the ring and give it a whirl as well. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this done. I'm going on a trip next week for school, and I might not be able to finish this by then. Pretty busy getting all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, or the I's crossed, or whatever is happening. But what I've decided is that I am going to create a very powerful Italian navy. Now, on the first turn, I'd actually thought about building a carrier with a fighter, and I had actually built it and put it on the side, and I looked at it for a while, and I said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go over here, we're going to crush the British fleet with what we've got, and then we're going to take Transjordan. Now, we're obviously letting that transport go. It is done. It ain't going to survive. But the rest of the fleet is here, and they are protected, and then they can move back 1 space next turn. Then I can build a carrier and a fighter if I want, and become a fleet that the British just don't want to tangle with. So they won't want to enter the Med, and I'll keep getting the +3 bonus, that sweet, sweet cash. Now, the problem with making Italy relevant in the Med is that it's a trade-off, when all good games have trade-offs. So the trade-off is that then I'm likely not going to have a lot of stuff to send towards Russia, all right, to do any sort of real can opening for the Germans. The other problem is that because I didn't take Greece, the British are likely going to be able to come up here and activate Yugoslavia next turn. Now, to that end, I built a bunch of ground forces up here, including one heavy artillery. And with the air power and with some German help the following turn, should be able to dispatch them. But that's going to be a pretty tough fight. That's going to draw a bit of attention away from my goal. But can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Speaking of breaking eggs, I was in discussion with Triple Crown, and there was an updated rule that a factory will stop non-com movement. So in the other version of 39, you could scoot through to Romania with a mech, and then on the second impulse Germany has, come to Bulgaria. But in the new one, they've decided that that's a little too easy to activate all 3 Axis miners down there. So Germany had to give back $2, and Bulgaria will have to wait till round 2 to be activated. The Germans had some good fun, we saw, with their fleet and their air force taking out the British, but the British then came up here and sank the German surface fleet, consisting, of course, of a battleship, a cruiser, and a destroyer, and they were able to dispatch them in the first round of combat, all for the loss of 1 Hurricane fighter. Canadians saved their money, not spending any. And you can see the Americans built over here a couple of artillery and a couple of Marines, and then they saved the rest of their money. I am going to be absolutely determined to make a massive landing, a D-Day landing, in France 2 turns after America is in the war. That is my goal. I want to land about 40 to 50 units, American and British units, on that turn. If the Germans have not captured Moscow by then, and if the USSR is still going, still fairly healthy, I think that could be curtains for the Axis. We'll see, of course. But that's the plan for the Allies. The Axis, on the other hand, are going to try to control the Med, not lose grip in Africa, and they are absolutely going to try to just keep the British at bay. Now, obviously, playing by myself poses different sorts of challenges. Because I can read my own mind and I can kind of build. But what I'm trying to do is build focusing on those goals until it becomes apparent that that is a fool's errand, as it were. I will just carry on. We'll just carry on, and then we'll switch tactics when we need to. But for right now, the Allies are looking for a massive landing in France, and they're going to be there to stay. That is the goal. And the Axis, on the other hand, are hoping to prevent that. Part of my Axis strategy, of course, is to build subs. Subs. So if and when that landing does appear, I might be able to go in with the air and the subs and take out the ships. And that would cause a lot of problems for the Allies. The Allies down here are doing okay, though. The 2 destroyers were able to come down here and dispatch the Graf Spee. There's an activation of Liberia, and the boats that were up here in Gibraltar, instead of heading north and dying at the hands of the U-boats and the air power, came down here to link up with Mr. Transport, and they will likely head over here. I know that Triple Crown was talking about a rule that only the U.S. could activate them after the U.S. is in the war. I think that's a great move, so probably won't be able to activate them, but we might move a couple of boys here up to Gibraltar before the Italians get the smart idea to head over there themselves. Over here, the Far East Command, building some Gurkhas. These are great little sculpts, by the way. You can see that there's different types of sculpts that you can get for the Gurkhas. And so I decided to purchase those and paint them up. I gave them kind of a rough painting. Oops, that's terrible camera work. Kind of a rough painting. And then put them on the Gurkha Rifles roundels. Those look really sharp. You can get those at the HBG, of course. And, of course, we took Sumatra because why not? $4 is $4. And we brought 2 boys down there and a lone transport. I'm also trying something a little different. I actually took a couple guys out of Singapore and I put them into Hong Kong. The other thing I'm doing is I'm bringing over the Canadian and seeing if he can make it to Hong Kong before the shooting starts. Now he's going to be there on turn 3. Don't know if Japan's going to do a declaration of war on the UK by turn 3, but if they do, the Canadian is going to die out in the middle of the ocean, which is not fun. Over here, the Anzac were able to take the Dutch East Indies and Dutch New Guinea for an extra $3. So they're sitting at 13 right now, and they just built a man and a transport hoping to go cause a bit more trouble. Now the Dutch fleet is here, and from my understanding it's able to now join. I didn't move them before, but from my understanding it's able to join. Now you can see the Dutch fleet is far more modest than it was in the original. There was a coastal battleship and transport as well, I think. So we decided to pare that down a little bit because all those free boats that you're not rolling for seemed a little in excess for the Anzac to get. You can see the 2 Japanese fleets here. The 2 task forces are here, and they are just sitting off the coast of Siam, ready to go. We saw what happened up in China. The Chinese response was to build 4 right there in Yunnan. Now, there are 6 or 7 units in Yunnan right now, and a little bit of a follow-up with Sichuan. So if the Japanese do come in here, they will likely lose their veteran troops and their SNLF troops, and that would be it. Now, they can obviously win the fight, but they will lose the ground forces, and the counterattack will finish off the rest of the ground forces. Again, I'm playing by myself, and my idea was to try to take Calcutta on turn 3. Not sure if that's going to be possible, knowing that, knowing what I know. So I might not be able to make it. But I've brought the transports down. They can come down all the way in 3 moves. 1, 2, 3. They can all come all the way to here. Next turn and load it up. I can bring 5 loaded transports to right here with both fleets ready to go. And then it's just an easy 1-2. There's no boats here to block. And that could do it. But Calcutta is going to have an extra number of units in there by that time. Remember, FEC only has $16 to start, and right now they're actually sitting at 27. So they're going to be able to build 6 more units, plus the British can build a unit in there. So, yeah, I still think the Japanese, when they want something, they can go take it. Now, again, when they do that, that just brings the Americans closer into the war with 25. Now, for the rolls, the Americans only rolled an 11, unfortunately. And so with that 11 and their 5 that they get from France being attacked, they're at 16 right now. And the Soviets had a better roll. They rolled an 18. So they're sitting at 18. But they also made 3 more bucks because they took these. Now, Triple Crown and I are talking about this because essentially it made no sense for the Soviets to go take East Poland and the Baltic states because they're only worth $3 total, and you're likely going to lose a couple of guys doing it, and it's just not worth, the juice ain't worth the squeeze, as it were. And if the Germans wanted to declare war on the Soviets this turn, they can move in with quite a bit of stuff, and they can Barbarossa those guys to death, right? So it's something we wanted to talk about, and I think the rule that I proposed, and Triple Crown and I are going to discuss it, is that if Germany attacks Poland, which they typically do, if they attack them, on that very same turn, the Soviets have to come into East Poland. They don't have to go into the Baltic states, but they do have to go into East Poland as part of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. That, if you take half of Poland, we'll take the other half. In this case, 2/3 versus 1/3. And if the Soviets don't back up their promise, then the Germans are able to go in and take East Poland and take that sweet, sweet cash. And there's only, remember, like 3-4 units sitting in there. So the Soviets went in. They actually ended up losing a couple of guys, and they lost 1 guy in the Baltic states. But I like that because the Soviets, they have this peace with the Germans, so they need to back it up by keeping to their promises. That is pretty much everything on the board. I don't think there's anything else need to say. In the Colonial Factory down here, I built a tactical bomber. And again, playing by myself, I'm thinking what would be a good thing to have if Italy remains relevant. And it's always good to have some air power. I also built a factory in Cairo, and the Italians just didn't have enough to take it out this turn. They would have lost all their stuff, and yeah, they'd just be, they probably wouldn't have taken Transjordan, so then the British fleet could come through. Okay, so that's it for round one. I'm hoping to get to round two tomorrow and the next day. Probably get to round 2 or 3 by the end of this week, and then I got to go off for a little week and a bit, and we'll come back and finish this off. But hopefully you're enjoying this. Remember to check out Triple Crown, Captain G, and CB's Bills channel. And CB's Bills. Pretty sure I said that right. Check out all those channels, folks. Give them a look, give them a like, give them a subscribe, and let's just build up the community all together now. Thanks so much for your support, and we'll let you know how turn 2 goes as soon as I possibly can. Oh, I was going to mention, Soviets are headed eastward. Anyway, as soon as we possibly can. Take care, folks. May the dice be with you. Banzai!